Get a field goal. And we're live. What's good, Ohio Cannabis Report family? It's your boy Gerald Moore Jr. back with another live episode. I was on LinkedIn and I came across an article from Ohio State University. So I wanted to get on live just to share that before the week starts. Let me go ahead and do my disclaimer. This is an independent media outlet and platform. So this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please like, comment, hit the notification bell, follow us on social media at Ohio Cannabis Report on all social media platforms for all your latest cannabis updates from the state of Ohio. Also, let us know in the comments where you are tuning in from. Also, let us know your thoughts on the current state of cannabis. Are you a cannabis consumer? Are you a medical patient? What are your thoughts about what's going on in the state of cannabis at the federal level, at the state level? There's a lot to talk about. So let me go ahead and share my screen really quick. All right, so I came across this on LinkedIn. Let me see. All right. So this is Ohio State's Moritz College of Law, Drug Enforcement and Policy Center. So adult use marijuana in Ohio, what you need to know. So this has been, I've covered this before. On November 7, 2023, Ohio became the 24th state to legalize adult use cannabis, with 57% of the voters voting in favor of Issue 2, also known as an act to control and regulate adult use cannabis. On August 6, 2024, sales began with the first dual-use dispensaries opening their doors to recreational consumers. On December 9th, 2025, the Ohio General Assembly passed Senate Bill 56, which made changes to some of the provisions of the original law. This page has been updated to ensure the public has access to up-to-date information about what is and what is not allowed under the new law, which would go in effect 90 days after Governor DeWine signs the bill. The page addresses questions such as, can I consume adult use marijuana in public places? Am I still allowed to grow my own marijuana? And many others. The question and answer section of this resource is divided into the following subsections: marijuana users, cannabis industry, general questions, public safety impact, and public health impact. The information below reflects the language of the newly passed Senate Bill 56. The Ohio General. What? Boy, take off your sweatpants.
Oh, you
Let me see here. All right. Download printable version. Okay. Comparison of issue 2 and revisions by the Ohio General Assembly. On December 9th, 2025, the Ohio General Assembly passed Senate Bill 56, which makes several changes to Ohio's Ohio's marijuana laws, and for the first time addresses drinkable cannabinoid products, although all sections addressing drinkable cannabinoid products are automatically repealed on December 31st, 2026. The bill is silent on other intoxicating hemp products, though changes to federal law enacted November 2025 going into effect November 2026 have effectively closed the federal loophole. Governor DeWine issued an executive order in October 2025 that would have halted sales of intoxicating hemp products if not for a restraining order, which has since been extended to January 2026. If the restraining order is not renewed, it will bring an end to the non-drinkable intoxicating hemp industry in Ohio. All right. So, key takeaways from the passage of SB 56. Senate Bill 56 makes several changes to Ohio marijuana laws. These key takeaways will help you to stay in the know as to what is and what is not allowed under the new law. All right, so Ohioans 21 years and older are legally allowed to consume, possess, and purchase cannabis from licensed Ohio dispensaries. There are no limitations on how individuals 21 years and older may consume adult use marijuana. Examples: smoking, vaping, edibles, etc. However, the law does not permit marijuana consumption in public places. An individual can possess 2.5 ounces of adult use cannabis grown at home or purchased at an Ohio dispensary in any form except adult use extracts, and 15 grams of adult use cannabis in the form of adult use extracts. Marijuana purchased in dispensaries in other states is no longer considered a legal product. A customer can purchase 2.5 ounces per day from a licensed Ohio adult use dispensary or 15 grams of adult use extracts. Adult edible marijuana, when not in use, must be stored in its original packaging. When transporting marijuana in motor vehicle, one of the following must apply. One, the product is in its original unopened packaging in which it was dispensed or sold. Two, if previously opened, the product or paraphernalia is stored in the trunk of the motor vehicle, or if the motor vehicle does not have a trunk, behind the last upright seat of the motor vehicle, or in an area not normally occupied by the driver or passengers and not easily accessible by the driver. Individuals may grow up to 6 plants for personal use, with a limit of 12 plants per residence, unless the residence is a child care, halfway house, community residential center, or other similar facility, licensed division of parole and community services. An individual is allowed to gift up to 6 plants of marijuana without remuneration, as well as 2.5 ounces of adult use cannabis in any form except adult use extracts, and 15 grams of adult use cannabis in the form of adult use extracts. Medical marijuana cardholders continue to be able to purchase their medication through licensed marijuana dispensaries. Now, what is not legal? Individuals younger than 21 years cannot lawfully possess or consume adult use marijuana. Purchasing marijuana outside of a licensed dispensary is unlawful. Possessing marijuana purchased from an illicit seller or dispensary from another state is unlawful. No person shall knowingly consume adult use marijuana or homegrown marijuana in public places. No one is allowed to sell marijuana without an appropriate license. Smoking, combustion, and vaping of marijuana are prohibited on privately owned property if such property serves as a daycare, halfway house, or community residential center, as well as rental property where rental agreement prohibits such use. Individuals are prohibited from operating a vehicle, motor vehicle, streetcar, trackless trolley, bike, watercraft, or aircraft while using marijuana, or if its specific levels of marijuana or its metabolites are present in an individual's urine or blood. Individuals are prohibited from smoking, vaporizing, or using any other combustible marijuana products while being a passenger in a vehicle, motor vehicle, streetcar, trackless trolley, bike, watercraft, or aircraft. Purchasing marijuana in other states such as Michigan and bringing the product to Ohio is unlawful. SB 56 provides no legal protections for adult use consumers with respect to employment, medical care, custody issues, gun ownership, or housing. Employers are allowed to continue workplace policies prohibiting marijuana consumption, and landlords are allowed to prohibit consumption of marijuana on their properties. So yeah, that's Typical Ohio right there. Let me see what else they got for us to steady up on. So they got a timeline. They show a timeline. Full legalization ballot issue fails November 5th, 2015. Ohio voters overwhelmingly reject responsible Ohio ballot initiative 64-36, which would have amended the Ohio Constitution to fully legalize marijuana. And then June of 16, medical marijuana enacts through legislative process. Ohio General Assembly enacts HB 523, legalizing medical marijuana with complex regulatory system, making Ohio 25th state with medical marijuana program. Then you have January 2019, medical marijuana sales begin at licensed stores. First licensed medical marijuana dispensaries open in Ohio. Then you have June 19th, hemp products decriminalized. Ohio General Assembly enacts SB 57, which is keeping with 2018 federal farm bill, removes hemp from a controlled substance list. Then you have August 2021, new fully legalization ballot campaign started. New campaign, regulate marijuana like alcohol. Advances 2022 ballot initiative for legalization. Then you have legal dispute push ballot issue to be considered in 2023. Uncertainty about legal timelines led to settlement, so its collected signatures could be used in 2023 campaign. Then you have ballot issue approved. Ohio voters approved issue 2 by 57-43 margin to legalize marijuana for adult use and allow home growing November 2023. And then you have December 2023 ballot issues formally becomes law, legalizing adult use marijuana. Adult use marijuana is now legal, as is home growing, but without licensed dispensaries, sales remain illegal. And then August 2024, adult sales, use sales begin after expedited licensing process. Ohio's first dual use dispensaries begin marijuana sales. So that's been the timeline from the last decade, 2015 to 2025 in Ohio when it comes to legalization. The Ohio initiated statute process for an act to control and regulate. Let's see. I've already done that. Marijuana consumers. Can I grow my own marijuana? Yes, as of December 7, 2023, adult users are allowed to grow 6 plants per individual with a limit of 12 plants total per residence where 2 or more adults consumers reside at one time. Senate Bill 56 maintains this provision, but prohibits home cultivation at Type A or Type B child care centers, halfway houses, communities, residential service centers, and other similar facilities licensed by the Division of Parole and Community Services. The vast majority of other states that have legalized adult use allow their residents to grow a limited number of plants for personal use, ranging between 2 in Montana and 12 plants in Michigan. In our previous research, we heard from regulators who stressed that effectively managing home grow is necessary for public safety and for minimizing diversion to the illicit market. Regulators suggested 2 strategies to limit the potential negative effects of home grow provisions: giving law enforcement agencies clear and enforceable directions to keep the allowed number of plants relatively low, while also incorporating residency limits, limiting the number of plants that can be grown in a residence regardless of how many adults reside there. Pros: it enables patients to grow their own supply to minimize their expenses. Consumers can grow specific strains that might otherwise be hard to find in dispensaries, potentially create downward pressure on pricing in the market. Cons: home cultivation makes enforcement to prevent illegal grows in residential settings more difficult and can create uncertainty among law enforcement as well as public. Plants cultivated at home are not tested for harmful pollutants. Access to marijuana by underage persons may be harder to prevent. How much marijuana can I possess? An adult use consumer can possess 15 grams of adult use extract and 2.5 ounces of marijuana in any other form. The daily purchase limit is 2.5 ounces from a dispensary per day. Senate Bill 56 maintains the same permitted amount, but defines marijuana more narrowly to marijuana products purchased only in Ohio dispensaries or grown legally at home in the state of Ohio, thus excluding products purchased in other states or from the illicit market. Possession limits across legalized states vary, but they are generally between 1 and 2.5 ounces of cannabis flower in public, with some states having higher limits for concentrations or cannabis infused solid products. The state with the highest permitted possession limit is New Jersey, which permits possession of 6 ounces. Are there restrictions on how I can consume marijuana? Technically, there are no limitations on how adult use marijuana can be consumed. Medical patients are still prohibited from smoking or combusting marijuana, although there are limitations on some methods of consumption based on the location of the person. For instance, cannabis use falls under Ohio's law prohibiting smoking or vaping in public indoor spaces, meaning that neither vaping nor smoking of cannabis is allowed in places such as bars, restaurants, sporting venues, etc. Senate Bill 56 imposes the following additional limitations on the use of marijuana via smoking, combustion, or vaping. Smoking, combustion, or vaping of marijuana is only permitted at private residences and some agricultural lands. Consumption via smoking or vaping in public spaces is classified as a minor misdemeanor. Smoking, combustion, and vaping of marijuana is prohibited at any time of the day uh, in private homes that also operate as child care centers. Smoking, combustion, and vaping of marijuana is be prohibited in rental housing if the rental leasing prohibits such activity. Smoking, combustion, and vaping of marijuana in a motor vehicle as a passenger is prohibited and is classified as a misdemeanor of the third degree. What are the rules with respect to transporting and storing marijuana? The original law passed via Issue 2 was largely silent with respect to rules surrounding the transport and storage of marijuana. Senate Bill 56 imposes additional rules with respect to both. One, anyone transporting an open container of marijuana product in a motor vehicle must do so in the trunk of the vehicle, or if there is no trunk, behind the last upright seat of the motor vehicle, or in an area not normally occupied by the driver passenger. Violation of this rule is classified as a minor misdemeanor. Anyone transporting marijuana paraphernalia in a motor vehicle must do so in the trunk of the vehicle or if there is no trunk, behind the last upright seat of the motor vehicle or in any area not normally occupied by the driver passenger. Violation of this rule is classified as illegal use of possession of drug paraphernalia. Any purchased edible marijuana products must be stored in its original packaging when not in use. Are there employment and other protections for marijuana use? Employment protections for marijuana use is a complex issue shaped partially by the continued federal prohibition of marijuana as well as the challenge of detecting how and when past marijuana use may impair job performance. Ohio's law does not provide any employment protections, which is common. The majority of states that have legalized marijuana do not provide employment protections. Only 3 states, Nevada, New York, New Jersey, have enacted laws preventing employers from taking action solely based on the presence of cannabinoid metabolites in an employee system or refusing to hire based on an individual's use of marijuana outside of the workplace. However, in all 3 states, employers can continue with drug-free workplace policies. Senate Bill 56 erased the following legal protections that were enacted under the original law for adult use marijuana consumers, although medical patients retain these protections. Protection for occupational license holders for engaging in professional or occupations activities related to adult use cannabis, for owning or providing professional assistance to adult use operators, and for obtaining, possessing, and transporting and using adult use cannabis. The use and possession of adult use marijuana cannot be the sole or primary basis for determining if a child is abused or neglected. Allocating of parental rights and responsibilities and parenting time orders. The use and possession of adult use marijuana shall not be used to disqualify an individual from receiving medical care or from being included on a transplant waiting list. Users cannot be rejected as tenants, but owners can prohibit smoking, vaping, and combustion on premises. Senate Bill 56 maintains that a law enforcement officer must have an independent, factual basis giving reasonable suspicion that the individual is operating a vehicle under the influence of adult use cannabis or with a prohibited concentration of marijuana in the person's whole blood, blood serum, plasma, breath, or urine to conduct any field sobriety test. In other words, the mere presence of marijuana smell cannot be used as a pretense for conducting a field sobriety test. Senate Bill 56 also maintains that the use or possession of adult use cannabis shall not be used as a reason for disqualifying an individual from a public benefit program administered by any state or local authority, or for otherwise denying an individual of public benefit administered by the state or any locality, with the exception of unemployment benefits if the individual lost their job for violating drug-free policy. What are the current rules with respect to marijuana OVI and consumption of marijuana in a motor vehicle? TikTok, I'm just going over Ohio's cannabis laws right now. So if you're confused, I'm doing another live from my YouTube. I run an independent cannabis page called Ohio Cannabis Report. So if you're into cannabis, you want to know what's going on in Ohio cannabis, follow us. Got some interesting news from Ohio State. I know everybody loves Ohio State football, but Ohio State also has a law school that does some pretty good work. And they have the Department of, what is it called? Drug Enforcement and Policy Center, which started a few years ago. So they do a lot. They've been following the cannabis industry very closely the last few years. I lost where I was at. What are the rules with respect to transporting storing marijuana? Yep. What are the current rules? Ohio is one of 7 states with an OVI per se law specific to THC impairment. Currently, an individual operating a motor vehicle is impaired by marijuana if they are found with a concentration of at least 10 nanograms per milliliter in their urine or at least 2 nanograms per milliliter in their whole blood, blood serum, or plasma. Ohio law also considers an operator as under the influence of alcohol, a drug of abuse, or a combination of them, and has a concentration of marijuana metabolite of at least 15 nanograms of marijuana metabolite per milliliter of the person's urine, or at least 5 nanograms of marijuana per milliliter of the person's whole blood or blood serum or plasma. Specific to the only marijuana metabolites, an individual is considered impaired if they have a concentration of at least 35 nanograms of marijuana metabolite per milliliter of the person's urine, or at least 50 nanograms per milliliter of the person's whole blood, blood serum, or plasma. Operators and their passengers are prohibited from smoking, vaporizing, or using any other combustible adult use produce. I'm assuming that's product, just a typo. While in the vehicle, motor vehicle, streetcar, trackless trolley, bike, watercraft, or aircraft. For more information, see legislating marijuana impairment, proposed changes to law. Can I have marijuana delivered to me to my home? The original legislation does not allow for home delivery of any marijuana product. Senate Bill 56 does allow home delivery for medical marijuana patients and directs the Division of Cannabis Control to create such regulation. I didn't realize SB 56 did that. That's interesting. I am a medical patient. What marijuana related conduct can result in criminal penalty? Please note that the list below might not be an exhaustive listing of any conduct that carries a criminal penalty, and nothing in the section below or on this page should be taken as legal advice. Please consult an attorney if if you have any questions about marijuana-related conduct. An individual consuming marijuana by smoking, combustion, or vaporization while operating a motor vehicle when a vehicle is subject to section, I'm not reading all that. A passenger consuming marijuana by smoking, combustion, motor vehicle when the vehicle is being operated is guilty of a misdemeanor of the third degree. An adult consumer consuming marijuana, smoking, combustion, or vaporization in a public space, childcare facility, halfway house, community transitional house, housing facility, community residential center, or a rental property where the rental agreement prohibits such a use is guilty of a minor misdemeanor. A person selling marijuana to a person under the age of 21 is guilty of a misdemeanor in the first degree for first offense and a felony in the fifth degree for consecutive offenses. A person possessing more than the allowable amount of marijuana is guilty of possession of marijuana under section 2925 dot 11 and then a person growing marijuana not in accordance with the legislation is guilty of illegal cultivation of marijuana. A person who provides false information regarding individual's name and age and in order to purchase marijuana is guilty of a misdemeanor of the first degree. Amount of fines changes depends on whether it is the first offense or subsequent offenses. A person who solicits another person to purchase marijuana on their behalf is guilty of misdemeanor of the fourth degree for first offense and a misdemeanor of the second degree for the consecutive offense. A person who transports marijuana not purchased in an Ohio dispensary or homegrown in Ohio is guilty of a minor misdemeanor. A person transporting improperly stored marijuana stored in a motor vehicle, an open container not stored in the trunk or behind the last row of seats if the vehicle does not have a trunk is guilty of a minor misdemeanor. A person improperly transporting marijuana paraphernalia in a motor vehicle is guilty of illegal use or possession of marijuana drug paraphernalia under section blah, 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 blah. The individual who cultivates, produces, or sells marijuana without a license is guilty of the illegal trafficking in drugs under section 2925-03 of the revised code and the illegal manufacture of drugs under section 2925-04. Industry, how many licenses will be issued and how long will it take? Under the original legislation, there were no official caps on the number of licenses, although it included limited limits in respect to the initial number of licenses, giving the Division of Cannabis Control the power to decide whether to issue additional licenses or cap licenses for specific areas based on the balance of supply and demand in the market. SB 56 created a hard cap on dispensary licenses at 400. States have varying regulations for different types of licenses, with some limiting how many licenses one entity or one individual can hold at one time to mitigate fears of market domination by large actors. Well, we know that's not happening in Ohio. Of the previous 23 states that have legalized adult use marijuana, 10 have enacted license limits based on an established cap or contingent on county population. Arizona limits licenses relative to the total number of pharmacies operating in the state. Pros: ability to charge higher licensing fees to support effective regulatory structure, because only when capitalized businesses can enter market due to high fees, creating more stable market. Ability to regulate supply of product and react to changing conditions in the market to prevent oversaturation. Allows for preferential treatment of certain classes of applicants. Cons: limits how many entities can enter the industry. Gives advantage to well-capitalized individuals, businesses, limiting diversity in the industry. That's what we're having a problem with. By restricting supply, creates potential for higher prices to consumers. That's what we're dealing with. Necessitates creation of government selection process, which can create controversy. How much will licenses cost? The licensing fee assessed by the state for adult use businesses varies wildly from state to state and license to license. In some states, such as Alaska, fees can be as low as $1,000, while other states, such as New York, assign fees as high as $200. There are many considerations that go into determining licensing fees. States want to ensure that their regulatory structures can be wholly funded by the proceeds from the marijuana industry, while at the same time, they need to consider the barriers. The barrier high fees creates a small and minority owned businesses. Um, create high fees create for small minority owned businesses. Transparency about administrative costs for marijuana programs and how fees are spent can be helpful in ensuring that fees are not set too low or too high. Licensing fees scheduled for medical and adult use marijuana licenses. Level 1 cultivators, 20,000 application fee, 180,000 licensure fee, and a $200,000 renewal fee. Level 2 cultivators, $2,000 application fee, non refundable, $18,000 licensure fee, $20,000 renewal fee. Processor, $10,000 application fee, $40,000 licensure fee, $50,000 renewal fee. Testing lab, $2,000 application fee, $18,000 licensure fee, $40,000 renewal fee, 2-year license. Dispensary, $5,000 application fee, $70,000 licensure fee, 2-year license, $70,000 renewal fee. General questions. How much will the state tax marijuana? The taxation level under the legalization initiative falls in the mainstream when compared to other states. Most states impose an excise tax on cannabis of 10 to 15% in addition to their regular sales tax. Based on available information, New Jersey appears to have the lowest tax burden of 6.625%, plus a variable local tax of up to 2%. The state of Washington, on the other hand, levies a 37% excise tax plus 6.5% state sales tax, an additional local state tax. Ohio Medical Marijuana Control Program, no special tax levied on medical marijuana purchases. Patients are subject to a regular state 5.25% and a local sales 0.25 to 2.525%. Adult use marijuana taxation under Senate Bill 56 remains unchanged, 10% excise tax plus regular state and local sales tax, totaling between 15.25% and 17.5% tax levy. How much tax revenue did Ohio collect from the marijuana industry? Advocates for cannabis reform in Ohio and other states often stress the tax revenue that can be raised through legalization. In 2023, our center estimated by year 5 of operation, Ohio could see between $276 million to $403 million in annual tax revenues in the tax structure. If the tax structure is not altered by the General Assembly. In the first fiscal year of adult use operations from August 2024 through June 2025, Ohio collected $115,531,644 in sales tax from both medical and adult use consumers, an additional $61,978,042 in excise tax from adult use consumers. It is important to remember, though, these numbers are small compared to overall size of state budget, which for fiscal year 2025 stood at approximately $95 billion. In other words, similar to other legalized states, even if tax revenues exceeded our estimates, it is unlikely that they would reach beyond 1% of the overall state budget. How will money be spent? Every state with legalized adult marijuana has established a plan to allocate marijuana revenue generated through the tax and fee collection. The plans vary widely, with some states focusing on funding education and law enforcement, while others distribute resources to localities, substance abuse programs, social equity programs, research, veteran services, and others. The original adult use marijuana law in Ohio specified that funds generated from the 10% excise tax would be distributed quarterly as follows: 36% of the Cannabis Social Equity and Jobs Fund, 36% for the host communities cannabis fund. This fund will be allocated proportionally to host communities based on the volume of tax generated within their jurisdiction. 25% of the for the Substance Abuse and Addiction Fund, and 3% for the Division of Cannabis Control and Tax Commissioner Fund. The state sales tax and the local sales tax would be deposited in respective general funds. Senate Bill 56 made major changes to the tax revenue allocation, leaving only 36% of the host community funds, cannabis funds, but otherwise depositing all remaining revenue from the marijuana excise tax into the general fund, along with all state sales revenue. Will my locality be able to prohibit marijuana businesses? Yes, localities may adopt ordinances to prohibit adult use dispensaries, but may not prohibit or limit existing operational medical marijuana cultivators, processors, or dispensaries, or an adult use cultivator, or an adult use processor, or an adult use dispensary that is co-located with adult use cultivator and an adult use processor who have or whose owner have a medical marijuana certificate of operation at the same location as of the effective date of the act. A municipal corporation or a township may vote to prohibit the operation of an adult use dispensary within 120 days of the dispensary license being issued. As of October 2025, 130 municipalities have prohibited the operation of adult use marijuana businesses within their jurisdiction. For more information, including the list of municipalities that have prohibited the operation of adult use marijuana businesses within the jurisdiction, see the local moratoriums. Also, almost every state has adopted laws enabling localities to completely prohibit or significantly limit adult use marijuana establishments from operating within their jurisdictions. Localities can prohibit establishments through ordinances or opt out through voter referendum. Unlike the rest of the adult use states, New Mexico is the only state where the legislators included provisions preventing local jurisdictions from completely prohibiting adult use licenses from operating. Public safety and public health. Marijuana reform, especially legalization for recreational purposes, raises important questions about how such policy change might impact public safety and public health. Because marijuana legalization is a new development and takes various forms in different locales, rigorous research into questions related to the effects on crime, impaired driving, youth use of marijuana, and other impacts of health and safety has only just begun. To date, research results do not yet paint a clear picture on most of these important questions. The small sample of studies presented in the sections below were selected to demonstrate that while researchers are starting to explore these questions, data limitations and the relative recency of these changes means the continuing and sustained research is needed to help policymakers design regulations and policies to minimize potential harms and maximize potential benefits. Will we see an increase in traffic accidents? To date, researchers have found mixed results when looking at the question of whether marijuana legalization results in higher number of traffic accidents or higher rates of impaired driving. To assess the effects of legalization on traffic fatalities in Colorado and Washington, a 2020 study by Hansen, Miller, and Weber used a synthetic control approach with data on fatal traffic accidents between 2000 and 2016. The author found little evidence to support the idea that recreational legalization dramatically increased traffic fatalities. Specifically, synthetic control groups had similar changes in marijuana and alcohol-related traffic fatality rates, as well as a similar change in overall traffic fatalities, despite not having legal marijuana. On the other hand, in 2023, a 2023 study by Adkiri, Mass, and Trejo Barra found that legalization of recreational marijuana resulted in an increase of 2 traffic deaths per billion of miles traveled, which translate roughly into 1,000 excess fatalities on annual basis for all states that have legalized recreational marijuana. Most studies that have looked at the question of road safety note important data limitations as well as a lack of clear understanding of marijuana impairment. For example, Wendell and co authors found that marijuana legalization and decriminalization were correlated with an increase in positive cannabis tests among drivers. However, they determined that many of these studies were at risk of bias due to the potential confounders, and measurement error. The authors also emphasize that while more drivers may have tested positive for cannabis, this does not necessarily mean they were driving impaired, as THC can be detected for long periods of time after consumption. Will we see an increase in crime rates? Whether marijuana legalization is linked to an increase or a decrease in crime is a great interest to policymakers and researchers. Unfortunately, this question is also very difficult to study due to data limitations that exist in our criminal justice system and relative recency of legalization and number of confounding factors present. Nevertheless, several studies have tried to ascertain the relationship between marijuana legalization and crime. A 2019 study focused on Colorado found that the opening of medical and recreational dispensaries decreased violent crime in nearby neighborhoods with incomes above the median, although it had virtually no impact on aggregate rates of violent and property crimes overall. The authors also found a decrease in a non-cannabis drug and alcohol-related crimes near dispensaries. While they found that vehicle break-ins were elevated within a mile of dispensaries, they concluded that marijuana legalization had a net benefit with regard to crime rates. An additional study focused on recreational legalization in Washington and Oregon found that legalization likely caused a drop in crime. Specifically, the authors found that legalization resulted in a significant reduction in rape and property crime on the Washington side of the border, compared to both the Oregon side in the pre-legalization years. Furthermore, while marijuana consumption increased, use of other drugs and alcohol decreased. At the same time, some studies found increases in crime rates after cannabis legalization. For example, using UCR data from 2007 to 2017 to examine the effect of a marijuana legalization on crime rates in Oregon, one study found increases in crime rates for several types of offenses, including property and violent crime. In another study pertaining to crime in Oregon, Wu and Willis found that the rate of simple assault had increased following legalization. However, they noted that their post-legalization time frame was fairly short and should be reassessed by future research. Other research found no significant change in crime following marijuana legalization. For example, using UCR data, Lou et al. Conducted a quasi experimental study to examine crime rates in Colorado and Washington. They found no statistically significant effects of marijuana legalization on violent property crime. Similarly, a review study looked at data from several legalized states, uh, indicated that violent crime neither increased nor dropped dramatically following cannabis legalization. Overall, the literature exploring the relationship between liberalization of marijuana policies and crime seems to suggest that legalizing marijuana is not a threat to public safety. Will we see an impact on arrest rates? Unlike other public policy questions around marijuana legalization, whether there is an impact on arrest rates is fairly straightforward. Numerous studies indicate significant drops in the number of arrests following the legalization as well as decriminalization of adult use marijuana. Firth and co-authors used national incident-based reporting systems, data on marijuana-related arrests, and found that marijuana arrests related among people over 21 fell dramatically after legalization of marijuana possession in Washington state, and that rates stayed similar levels following the opening of retail market. However, while marijuana-related arrest rates for both white and black adults decreased, white and black adults decreased, relative disparities increased. African Americans previously had an arrest rate 2.5 times higher than the white arrest rate, but this increased to 5 times higher after the opening of the retail market. Similarly, recent research on Colorado and Washington has also found that while cannabis-related arrest rates generally declined after legalization, racial disparities persisted. Thus, while legalization lessens the absolute number of people who come in contact with the criminal justice system overall, more needs to be done specifically to address racial disparities. Well, black folks are still selling drugs on the illicit market. You can't afford to play the legal game. So I would say that's probably the issue. Will we see an increase in youth consumption of marijuana? As with questions about public safety, the research findings of many questions related to public health are mixed. In respect to uh, rate of use, some research indicates an increase of marijuana use overall, while others research shows decreased rates of use among teens. According to a 2021 study, that reviewed existing research on the topics, use in the states where marijuana is legal tends to be higher than the average rate of use in the United States. However, this difference mainly predates legalization. In a 2019 report from the Journal of American Medical Association, the enactment of the adult use legalization law showed no significant association with marijuana use or marijuana use frequency among high school students. Similarly, medical cannabis laws did not impact youth usage rates. A 2020 study that looked at teen use in California and Washington found that both states recorded a drop in teen use post legalization, which was consistent with data from non legalized states suggesting an overall national drop in teen use of marijuana. This this was later supported by a 2023 survey by the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, which highlighted that the past 30-day cannabis use among U.S. high school students in 2021 was the lowest since 1991, with male teens experiencing a significant decrease from 26% in 2011 to 14% in 2021, and female students use remaining relatively stable, with 18% using in 2011 and 16% reporting use in 2021. As with previous questions, continued rigorous research focused on rates of use among adults and adolescents is needed to ensure that policymakers and regulators have the necessary information to effectively regulate legal cannabis markets. Special attention should be paid to harmful levels of use. Will we see an increase in emergency room visits? A number of studies have noted an increase in the number of cannabis-related emergency room visits over the last 2 decades. For instance, a CDC study from 2023 noted an increase in cannabis-involved emergency room visits for people under the age of 25 during the COVID pandemic, while also noting a statistically significant increase prior to the pandemic. However, this study was not specifically focused on states with legalized recreational marijuana or tracking the impact of such legalization on emergency room visits. A recent study looked at cannabis positivity rates in 17 emergency departments across the U.S. with different stages of marijuana legalization. According to the authors, most states experienced a significant increase in cannabis positivity rates as legalization progressed. However, the positivity rates differed. In most states with no cannabis legalization, there was still a significant, albeit smaller, increase in cannabis positivity rates in emergency room visits. Additionally, a study conducted at 2 Boston medical centers from 2012 to 2019 showed an increase in both positive THC IA results and cannabis-related ICD-10 codes in the emergency department, particularly among females, patients aged 30 to 39, older adults, 59 years. In the highest income bracket. Similarly, a 2018 study from Colorado noted an increase in emergency room visits for patients between 13 to 21 years of age from 20 to 2005 to 2015. In summary, there has been an observed increase in emergency room visits related to marijuana use in states that have legalized marijuana because people don't know what the fuck they're doing, consuming too much. You got to start slow. It is important to keep in mind, though, that even states that have not legalized marijuana have seen an increase in emergency room visits, and studies that were conducted in legalized states had some significant limitations. While these limitations are worth noting, there also appears to be a consensus among scholars that regulators should pay specific attention to mandating child-proof containers for cannabis products and prohibiting marketing of products whose packaging mimics popular child-friendly snacks and candies. Impact on the workplace. The connection between marijuana legalization and the labor market is of great interest to employers and the policymakers alike, prompting questions about changes to the prevalence of workplace incidents, changes in productivity and labor participation, and impact on worker compensation costs. But as with any other question surrounding marijuana reform, the research to date provides mixed evidence, with very little research being available on the impact of recreational adult use legalization specifically. Let me take a little. Let's see. In respect to workplace injuries, majority of research to date focuses on whether there is a link between use of marijuana and workplace accidents, rather than on a link between marijuana legalization and injuries. In a 1990 study prior to any state legalizing an adult use or medical program, researchers found that individuals that tested positive for marijuana through a urine analysis had 55% more industrial accidents, 85% more injuries, and 78% increase in absenteeism. A 2023 study found that individuals that consume marijuana on the job were nearly twice as likely to experience some form of workplace injury, although there was no negative effect for consumption of marijuana outside of the workplace. Excuse me. In respect to the medical marijuana legalization, some research actually showed a positive impact, with a 2018 study finding that legalization of medical marijuana, was associated with a 19.5% reduction in expected workplace fatalities for individuals 25 to 44. In regard to labor supply, a 2019 study found a positive relationship between medical marijuana laws and labor supply among older adults. For adults 51 years and older, the study showed an increase in probability of full-time employment as well as full hours worked. Another study from 2018 found no changes in the labor market following medical marijuana legalization, with employment status, hours worked, and wages remaining unaffected. When it comes to research focused on recreational marijuana legalization, the results are also mixed. While a 2017 study, a McLean et found an increase in disability claim applications and longer disability periods after recreational marijuana legalization. Another study from 2021 showed reductions in workers' compensation claims and benefits. And here are some additional resources. Here are the local moratoriums in the state of Ohio. What's good? What's good? What's good? TikTok. What's good? So I'll show y'all that. So if y'all watching this, y'all can slow this down and just. Here are all the places that have moratoriums against cannabis in the state of Ohio. And again, this is all public information. This is coming from Ohio State University, Morris College of Law. So if you want to do your own research, I think more people got to understand, like, the internet is for more than just entertainment. You know what I mean? Do research. Start your own, platforms and shit. What tax revenue should Ohio expect for medical recreational? Let's say more. Explore marijuana reform focus area page, marijuana control program, social equity, interstate commerce. And I wish, Ohio State would do more. You know what I mean? Like, this is they have so many great resources, and that's why I'm really here. Because there are so many great resources that we have access to. And sometimes, like, these big institutions, they don't necessarily push the information. They don't necessarily put it out on Front Street for you to even know that it exists. An equity action plan for marijuana, the Biden administration's opportunity to advance equity through cannabis reform. Cap Packer abstract. This paper examines the Biden administration's executive orders on equity, its position on marijuana reform before and after President Biden's related October 2020 statement, and its repeated statements acknowledging both cannabis criminalization's disproportionate impact on Black and Latino communities and marijuana reform as an opportunity to advance equity. Moreover, this paper critiques the omission of marijuana reform within the Biden administration's equity action plans and highlights the opportunity for the Biden administration to use its existing executive orders on equity as a framework to understand and address how marijuana laws and policies create barriers for underserved communities through the development of an equity action plan for marijuana reform. This is by Cat Packer. See if I can open it up. See if we got any. What's good, y'all? Sorry, I ain't been in the chat. What's up, chat? Is this from the lawyer's website? This is from Ohio State. Morris College of Law. It's been legal in Cali since 1996. A lot of Bologna in there. There ain't even 2 nanograms of Delta 9 in weed. Hey, pal, what's good? Write me up a bill so I can sell hemp, but no one else gets shit. This is what happened originally in the 1970s. All these isolated chemicals in different forms. What's good, TikTok? What's good? All right, let me get back to where is it? What it do? What it do? I gotta get my TikTok live up. What it do? You can try co-hosting with another kid to make live prefer. I ain't ready to battle right now. I know y'all be trying to battle. What y'all on tonight? It's so cold in Ohio. Oh, there we go. What's good? What's good? What's good? I'm just recording some content from my live from my my cannabis page. How y'all doing tonight? Where y'all tapping in from? What y'all got going on? Oh, whoa. And this what the reason a lot of information doesn't get out to the public from these institutions is because they hide them behind these institutional websites. And unless you're a researcher or unless you're somebody that is studying law, policy, whatever, like you're not going to go to the Ohio State University's research papers and fucking do the research. It's available to the public. But, most people is on here, shucking and jiving online. That's what I be doing. But doing fucking research and shit. An equity action plan for marijuana, the Biden administration's opportunity to advance equity through cannabis reform. Ohio State Legal Studies Research Paper number 771, Drug Enforcement Policy Center, 2023. So I'm doing some research. This is by Kat Packard, Distinguished Cannabis Policy Practitioner and Residence Drug Enforcement Policy Center, Morris College of Law, The Ohio State University. Like, the information there. But it's all in the policy. A lot of people, oh, I don't do politics. I'm just trying to get my money. I don't do politics. Okay. Trump just gave $1 trillion to the top 1%, but you don't do politics. Like, what? Like, this is crazy. Trump let Elon Musk get access to everybody's social security numbers, but you don't do politics. Trump's sons and kids is getting billions of dollars in cryptocurrency right now. Money laundering. But you don't do politics. Politics is everything. TikTok, right? Politics. So they keep you sheep. They keep you lulled to sleep with bullshit, thinking like, oh, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. I'm going to be an influencer. I'm going to be an NFL player. I'm going to be a football player. I'm going to be an actor, a model. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Like, no, you're not. No, you're not. It's like, now, right now is the best time to do whatever you put your mind to. I think people also got to be realistic, though. A lot of people be wanting the overnight success, right? And you'll hear this from anybody that's been successful consistently in life, is that an overnight success, it takes 10 years, right? And so I can attest to this. I was a successful football player, Division I All-American athlete, tried out for the NFL. It took me about 10 years from, I would say, I got to being a D1 athlete at 18. So at the age of like 8, 9, that's when I really started playing sports at a high level. And then I got my first trainer in 8th grade. And then I went to high school, went to a good high school, trained really good. And then I got to college. And then I got to the league. And then so my next venture after I got cut from the league, so then it was like, all right, what am I to do next? I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to be a business owner. But again, I didn't know what that took. I knew it took money. So my goal was to get to the league and get some bread so then I could start some businesses or invest in some things, buy some real estate. That didn't happen. And so it was like, all right, you got to get the ground floor right, on it. So go get a job. So I started working. So just start hustling. So um, started my first business in 2016. Sports performance business was doing really well. George Floyd happened, Black Lives Matter happened. Closed that business down a little bit, just dialed it back a little bit. We got pregnant, had kids. My wife had a good job. I was like, I'll be a stay-at-home dad the first few years until they get ready for kindergarten. Then obviously, first few years, my son was good. Then we had our daughter, and then I was like, I can't do it for my son and not do it for my daughter. So then COVID happened. Uh, so it's a lot of people just you got to create your own path. I think a lot of people get so afraid to do their own thing. You know what I mean? Everybody's so busy looking at what other people are doing or trying to model what other people are doing. Like, no, just understand this shit's not gonna happen tomorrow. You know what I mean? So many people want to get big or grow, and it's like, oh, it's not happening. Like, yeah, it takes time. Are you truly dedicated to this shit? Are you truly putting the work in? Most people don't really want to put the work in. They want the results. They want the fun. They want the image. They don't really want the work. And that's what's the separator. You know what I mean? Even from somebody that gets the one hit. Because a lot of people get lucky, like they shit hit. And it's like, oh, but you didn't really put the work in. You know what I mean? So you don't really have no foundation. So then when the shit don't work, the tricks don't work, you don't know what to go back to. I always know what to go back to, and that's work. Put in the work. Like most people don't even see the work that I put in a lot of times because I don't be showcasing it. It's behind the scenes work. A lot of people want to be on screen, but then don't want to do the work. Like you could create your own stream. Like the fact that we got streaming now, and people be like, "Well, nobody gonna put me on." If you're an artist, why aren't you doing your own shows? Like La Russell. La Russell is like the case study. What? I'm gonna build a shit in my backyard. Pay what you can. Like that's what I'm talking about. And a lot of people just don't got that, but they want it. They say they want it, but there's a difference between saying you want it and actually going to get it. And that's the difference. And a lot of people want to be put on. A lot of people want the handout. A lot of people want, something to be built and they just want to plug into it. And again, that's easy. Right? That's the easy route to go. That's the very like you don't have to really do much. Like you don't have to go through the trenches like that. Like you just get inserted and shit is moving. Which again, we all got to get our start somewhere. You know what I mean? Which again, but if you really want it, create some shit, build some shit on your own. All right, let's dive into this thing. Did I open the PDF? Mm. What's good, YouTube? What's good? Send me some comments if you guys got any comments. I'm just going over some information from Ohio State Morris College of Law. And so we're going to dive into one of these papers that was written. I hope everybody's having a good evening or whatever, wherever you're hitting me up from. Let me know where you're tapping in to. Where you tapping in from? A little roll call. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. Got a nice little snow today. Prayers to all of the victims. There's 2 mass shootings today. So definitely prayers to all of those victims and their families in those communities, man. Yeah, this shit is too normal these days, honestly, and it's sad. And it's very disturbing, you know what I mean? So, but what we're gonna do? But yeah, let me know in the comments where you're tapping in from. Make sure you guys go like, comment, follow, subscribe on all of our other social media platforms. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you know that when we go live. Let me see. gotta share my screen a bit. Hey, yo, that story coming out of Whitehall is wild too. Like, what? Whitehall City Councilman? Oh. Yo, Ohio's sick, bro. Columbus sick, love. Oh my god, dog. That story is so crazy. All right, we got an equity action plan for marijuana. So this is old, obviously, but we're just doing some research to build out some of our work that we're doing here in the state. So you got your an equity action plan for marijuana. You got your table of contents, introduction, Biden-Harris administration, notable promises before the Oval Office, notable silence on cannabis reform during presidency, the first executive order on equity, Biden's call for a comprehensive approach to advancing equity action plans as a core requirement of Biden's systemic approach, marijuana policies and practice absence from equity action plans, Biden's statement on marijuana reform, the second executive order on equity action plans as key facets of Biden's equity orders, what an equity action plan for marijuana reform would offer, developing a cannabis specific equity action plan, holding government accountable for equity in cannabis reform. About the Ohio State University Morris College of Law Drug Enforcement Policy Center and Drug Policy Alliance. The Drug Enforcement and Policy Center at the Ohio State University Morris College of Law helps shape and enrich the public conversations about the intersecting fields of criminal justice and drug policy and enforcement and their historical and modern impact on society. Center faculty and staff examine criminal and civil laws, policies, and enforcement efforts related to traditionally illicit drugs, with a particular focus on marijuana laws and reform efforts. We conduct and support interdisciplinary, evidence based research, scholarship, education, community outreach, and public engagement on these issues and their impacts. For more information about the Drug Enforcement Policy Center, please visit morriscollege.osu.edu/DEPC. Just to let you guys know, there is no relationship there. We are not connected. I am my own individual, no connection. This is open to the public. Ohio State is a federal land grant institute. This is all open to the public. People need to start using the resources that you have access to. The one thing about going to college, what they teach you is use your resources. You have access to an abundance of resources, whether it's going to talk to a professor who's had decades of experience in a particular field, whether it's using the library, whether it's using the archives, whether it's using the gym facilities. Use the fucking resources, people. Stop waiting for somebody to hand you shit. Stop waiting for somebody to hand feed you. Like, the information is there, and what you do with the information, that's the power, right? But a lot of people, I didn't know. I didn't have the information. Nobody told me. If you over 18, nobody should have to tell you shit. And that's the problem with a lot of people. They want people to tell them what to do and then be mad when you get told what to do. The only people that can tell me what to do is my wife and my kids. But like, just look at the information is there, people. Go talk to these people, man. These are lawyers. These are policymakers, lobbyists. The Drug Policy Alliance is a leading organization in the U.S. working to end the war on drugs, repair its harms, and build a non-punitive, equitable, and regulated drug market. We envision a world that embraces the full humanity of people, regardless of their relationship to drugs. We advocate that the regulation of drugs is grounded in health, equity, and human rights. In collaboration with other movements in every policy at every policy level, we change laws, advance justice, and save lives. For more information about the Drug Policy Alliance, please visit drugpolicy.org. About the author, Kat Packer, distinguished cannabis policy practitioner in residence, drug enforcement and policy center, Morris College of Law. She is the director of drug markets and legal regulation, Drug Policy Alliance. Here's her email. Kat Packer is a leading expert on cannabis law and policy who envisions cannabis policy reform as both an opportunity and responsibility to promote harm reduction and advance equity and social justice. Currently, Kat Pecker serves as Distinguished Cannabis Policy Practitioner in residence at the Drug Enforcement and Policy Center, Director of Drug Markets and Legal Regulations for the Drug Policy Alliance, Vice Chair of the Cannabis Regulators of Color Coalition, and it is the contributing author to the Thomas Reuters Cannabis Law Desk Book. Shout out to Kat Packer. Packer is recognized as the first person of color in the nation to lead a medical and adult use cannabis regulatory program. From 2017 to 2022, Packer served as the first executive director of the City of Los Angeles Department of Cannabis Regulation, where she led efforts to advise and implement cannabis business licensing and regulation in the world's largest cannabis market. Under her leadership, the City of Los Angeles licensed over 1,200 cannabis businesses, collected over $320 million in cannabis tax revenue, and became one of the first jurisdictions in the nation to establish programming designed to promote equitable ownership and employment opportunities in the cannabis industry. Prior to her role as a regulator, Packer worked for the Drug Policy Alliance, where she organized cannabis-related legislative and policy affairs, strategies, and partnerships at the state and local level. Packer is a proud alumna of The Ohio State University, where she received a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's degree in public policy and management, a Juris Doctor, and was named the 2020 recipient of Morris College of Law Outstanding Recent Alumni Award. Woo! So I'm not going to read all this for y'all, but y'all can definitely go check this out because I will be doing that later. It's 14 pages. So, I mean, it's not too much. Notable silence on cannabis reform during presidency. Although marijuana reform was a key promise of the Biden-Harris campaign during 2020 election, the two politicians seemed to fall silent on the issue once sworn into office. After frequently highlighting marijuana reform as an opportunity to advance equity, Biden conspicuously omitted marijuana reform from his transition plan on racial equity. When asked, the new administration repeatedly stated that it maintained its earlier stance on marijuana, but as months went by, officials failed to take material actions on related reform. The first time either President Biden or Vice President Harris publicly mentioned cannabis after the election was when Harris confirmed in April 2021 interview that the administration hadn't yet taken that on yet. She explained the inaction by gesturing to overwhelming impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Over the year later, October 2022, President Biden issued a statement on marijuana reform announcing actions and the administration was taking to end the country's failed approach to marijuana. The statement included the most significant steps the administration had taken on cannabis reform to date. It also marked the first time Biden linked cannabis reform to equity efforts in the city as a sitting president. So again, a lot of this information is just good to understand like where we are, right? Like what's been going on. I think a lot of times people don't necessarily understand what's going on. Trump's supposed to be rescheduling cannabis too tomorrow, potentially. But he would just be rescheduling it possibly to Schedule 3, which would be helping medical research. Again, we need full descheduling of cannabis. It shouldn't be scheduled at all. And so that's what our push should be. We need more people advocating for, at the federal level, at the state level. So, boo, boo, boo. Let's see. Anything else going on? Marijuana moment. Let's see what marijuana moment got right now. I know there's a bunch of people coming back from MJ BizCon too, so hopefully we'll have somebody come on this week that spent some time at MJ BizCon. They can give us a recap of everything going on at one of the biggest B2B cannabis B2B conferences in the country. And we need more of those, right? We need more people doing conferences, doing meetings, doing forums. The beautiful thing about cannabis right now is that it's in this gray space, right? It's in this open space. And so when it comes to businesses, a lot of people only think about business as being like, oh, I want to grow and sell weed, right? But what about all the ancillary markets, right? What about marketing and advertising in the cannabis space? What about books, right? Writing books, sharing stories. What about education, courses, classes? What about teaching people how to cook with cannabis? What about conferences where you bring different vendors together from different parts of the industry, manufacturers of engineered goods, seed suppliers, bag suppliers. Like you could do it on a small local level. You can do a small farmers market, charge people $50 to $100 for a stand. There's so many different levels to the business. When you talk about video, my whole thing was like, all right, what can I do? Very easy, very cost effective, won't really cost me a lot of money. I don't have to have, like, I'm not over regulated, right? So I don't have to deal with the state of Ohio worried about my products. I'm not pushing weight. You know what I mean? So I don't have to worry about transporting a boatload of products. I don't have to worry about marketing and advertising my products to people. I don't have to worry about going up to Michigan, coming back, bringing down products. I don't have to worry about what I say, what I can't, what I don't like. And so my idea was like, all right, social media. So I started a social media page, and my Ohio Cannabis Report page started going stupid. And so I started really impacting people. I started really understanding, like, oh, it's people in Ohio that really don't know what the fuck is going on out here. So I just started sharing the news and information as I was getting it because I had time. I'm a stay-at-home dad. You know what I mean? Like, so when I'm not with my kids or the kids are asleep or something, I could dial into what was going on. It was COVID. And so I was like, well, the news is like, my wife's a news anchor, like, but the news is only covering things in 10, 20, 30-second increments, a minute increments. Cannabis is a full-on industry. You look at hemp, for all of its properties, and then you look at cannabis and education and healthcare and sports and all just sorts of things. I was like, yo, I could create a whole fucking network just around cannabis. So again, my whole thing is like, it's not about making a bunch of money up front. It's about building a foundation, building something that, one, I could do, that I could be proud of, where I create my own platform. I can bring people on. I can create documentaries. I have events. We're going to start having some more live forums too. So definitely be on the lookout for that. We'll do some more maybe virtual forums. So if you're in Columbus or you're willing to come to Columbus, I'm looking to do some cannabis events. We have some locations where we can do some more like, luncheon type events where, people come and talk, for about an hour, where we talk about industry stuff. So if you're an industry expert, if you're a patient, if you're somebody that's willing to share your story, definitely contact us so I can keep you in the pipeline, because we have to start sharing this information. We have to start building out our network. We have to start. I mean, if you're a local grower, like people say, oh, support your local growers. Well, everybody don't know the local growers. You know what I mean? Like again, and we have to educate our local growers on how to properly navigate because right now, like there's so many gray areas that yeah, you can't sell it, but you could donate it. You know what I mean? Like we have to create a network of lounges and spaces where we can consume that accept us. We have to create businesses that support that. You know what I mean? And stop being afraid of these politicians that are already corrupt. Why are we afraid of corrupt politicians? Vote them out. And I know people got jobs and everybody, oh my God, I ain't got no job. Can't nobody fire me. I just read over the laws. I'm the employee of my own business. So I'm not going to drug test myself. It's a beautiful thing. You should try it. I actually just started another business yesterday too. Another one of my enterprises. So I might put Ohio Cannabis Report under there. Let's see. Let me see. My bad. I'm missing here. Wrap me up a bill. Where's the CBD? I always wanted to be a pothead. I achieved my goal easily. So I never thought I'd see the day where I actually got to work in like cannabis, like or like cannabis. Like cannabis has always been a part of my lifestyle and something that I've done, since I was in high school. But to think that like I would be able to do it publicly, um, in a way that like you could say I'm a pothead, I smoke weed, I talk about weed all I want to, but I get paid to do it. You know what I mean? So, and it's a business and it's a passion. So I thought you should only trust the government. Yeah, donations. I'll help with those. If you need to get some, right, right. Let me see. I also like to invite people in, so I'm gonna put the link in. So we got a few people in the chat. So if you see this, go ahead and put that in, and you could join me in the chat. You could join me live. I love talking to people live, so go ahead and put that in, and then it'll bring you into the studio, and we can have some convos. So we got marijuana moment. Bipartisan congressional lawmakers give mixed reaction to marijuana rescheduling. News from Trump administration. As Trump nears marijuana announcement, dispensary owners running for Congress pledges to file full legalization bill on first day in office. That shit ain't gonna happen. Alaska psychedelics campaign ends push to put legalization on 2026 ballot, shifting focus to 2028. Legal marijuana access reduces suicide rates for older adults, new study suggests. States that open recreational marijuana dispensaries saw suicide rates decline among older adults, according to a new scientific analysis of more than 2 decades of nationwide data correlating state legalization to the decline. The researchers note a modest yet statistically significant reduction in the states with legal access to cannabis. The research, conducted by a team of public health economists, examined monthly suicide counts from U.S. states between 2000 and 2022. Their aim was to better understand whether easier access to marijuana, specifically through licensed retail stores, might have a measurable effect on mental health outcomes. Their working paper, published by the National Bureau of Economic Research, shows that may be the case. The study found that in states where recreational cannabis dispensaries began operating, suicide rates among adults aged 45 and older declined. The effect was strongest among men, who historically have had significantly higher suicide rates and are more likely to use cannabis to manage chronic pain, uh, a health challenge that increases the risk of suicide. Quote, given the older adults are more prone to chronic pain and various physical and mental issues, it is not surprising that this demographic is increasingly turning to marijuana for its medicinal properties, the paper noted. The researchers found no similar patterns among young adults or in states that legalized recreational cannabis but had not yet opened retail stores. That distinction, they say, suggests that actual access to marijuana rather than legalization via state law changes alone may be more influential factors. The researchers did not find evidence that cannabis availability increased suicides, a concern raised by opponents who have claimed that legalization leads to rising rates of cannabis use and worsening mental health trends among young people. The authors also addressed the risk factors for suicide, for the therapeutic benefits of cannabis in addressing those underlying factors. Quote, the focus on pain as an underlying cause of suicide is under recognized in the literature and adds an important dimension to the policy discussion, they wrote. The study also arrives at a time when suicide rates in the U.S. remain near historic highs, especially among middle aged and older adults. Though the decline associated with dispensary openings was modest, the author argues that even small improvements deserve attention. The paper, which was not peer reviewed, was authored by Dr. Sarah Markowitz of Emory University and Katie E. Limbeck of Demand Side Analytics. Quote, although further research is needed to explore the underlying mechanisms driving these effects, these results point to one potential benefit of legalized recreational marijuana, end quote, they wrote. Quote, these findings contribute to the growing body of literature on the public health impacts of marijuana legalization, offering evidence that recreational dispensaries openings may play a role in reducing suicide among older adults, particularly in vulnerable subgroups, the paper concluded. The account to account for variable aside from state marijuana legalization, the authors also explored and dismissed other potential causes. Their models factored in, quote, the real beer tax, real cigarette tax, and three opioid centric policies, initial prescription limits, pill mill laws, and prescription drug monitoring programs, end quote, they wrote. The study comes as more robust research is being conducted related to cannabis legalization uh, in older adults. Earlier this year, scientists found that marijuana users have superior performance across multiple cognitive domains, according to a new large scale study funded by the U.S. federal government, with the effects of cannabis on cognition, quote, presented concurrently across a range of brain systems, end quote, and was based on data from 37,929 participants in the United Kingdom aged between 44 and 81 years old. The team found that cannabis consumers consistently outperform non users on a range of cognitive tests, suggesting that marijuana use may be linked to brain network patterns typically observed in younger individuals. This new study also comes on the heels of a study of more than 5,000 men whom researchers evaluated over the course of 44 years, finding that no significant harmful effects of cannabis use on age-related cognitive decline. In fact, the report says, quote, men with a history of cannabis use had less cognitive decline from early adulthood to midlife compared to men without a history of cannabis use. Nigga, see? Psh, they be trying to hoe us, bro. They be trying to hoe us. My guy Tim say, my guy Tim, let's add, as a medical patient, you no longer have custodial protections, professional license protections, and if you are on an organ recipient list, you no longer are eligible in your cannabis patient. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. But that's why we got to do the research, man. We gotta educate the people. You gotta educate the people, and you gotta educate yourself too. You know what I mean? It's okay to not know everything. I think we live in this world where everybody feel like they gotta know everything. Like if I'm wrong, I don't be giving a fuck. Like people on the internet be like, oh my god, like I don't care. Like, did it kill me? Like if you wrong and you don't die, like okay, as long as you ain't do nothing that dumb didn't kill you. Your browser has lost connection. Let me see what we got. Is recreational medicinal? It's all up to the person. Because for me, it's medicinal, right? Because I deal with pain. I have a medical card, but also and that's the problem with America and law and policy, right? It's words. It becomes wordplay, right? And that's why you have to teach people. Like people should be understanding like cannabis. Most people are using cannabis for a medicinal purpose. You know what I mean? Even people using it for a recreational purpose. You stressed. You don't work hard. You need to relax, right? Mental health. That's a medical purpose, right? So if you need to decompress, that's mental, physical, spiritual. That's medicinal. So it's America, right? Words, the English language. We always want to be. You look at the laws, you look at the policy right now, SB 56. Oh, we want to do the X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? So again, that's why education's important. That's why having conversations important because you know, the more you know, the more you can protect yourself. So I originally got my medical card, and when I got my medical card, that's when I started to talk the most because I mean, if you could see, it's hard being like athlete and in the public eye and then like people look up to you because you're a leader, right? You have kids that follow you, that follow you on social media. um, you got kids that follow you on social media or have followed your career, or people look up to you, and it's this branding, it's this image thing. And so then if I come out smoking weed, it's like, oh wow, like we can't have him, he's not a good image. It's like, well, nah, I mean, this is me. You know what I mean? Like, and where I come from, the people that I know, my community, this is what we do. You know what I mean? So again, once you get to like the collegiate level, the pro level, everything becomes so like commercialized, whitewash, and the whole idea of smoking weed becomes like, oh, this is just. Then you realize, like, no, everybody smokes weed. Everybody consumes. A lot of people consume it, but it becomes this very much cultural thing that, oh, you can't consume weed and still be a high performing athlete, right? Still get good grades, still be a good steward, public servant out in the community. Um, like consuming cannabis has never stopped me from doing anything. You know what I mean? And it's only really enhanced my life. And so for me, like hearing all of the stuff, the noise around it, but then having to pretend, right? Because again, I was a captain on my team. I was in a position of authority. I was in a position where, like, if I fuck up, like people gonna know. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be on ESPN. And when you're living that life, it's not fun. And so that's why when I got done trying out for the NFL and I got cut from the NFL, I was like, because this, I can control this narrative. This narrative is way easier. But when you play like in college sports or the NFL, once that narrative start going, it's out of here. It is out of there. And again, you look at like people like Josh Gordon, you know what I mean? Who, all these athletes. I mean, there's so many athletes who got kicked out of the league for smoking weed. I actually just did an interview with one of my best friends who played, baseball, got kicked out of the league for smoking weed. Now it's legal. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things, man. People got to understand, like, where we come from, it's not fair because, like, you're held to this standard that nobody else is held to, and then you're trying to do something to better care of your body, right? Because a lot of people smoking weed to relax. If you had a hard training session, you have practice, a game, you lost, whatever. Like you smoking weed to calm down, to settle your brain, right? Like you just played in front of 60,000, 100,000 people, screaming fans. Like that's a lot. You're overstimulated, and so a lot of athletes smoke weed because it allows them to decompress, relax their body, also allows them to heal their body, right? You got inflammation because you were just running, jumping, hitting people at full speed, so now your body's swollen. Well, what does cannabis do? Cannabis helps relax those muscles, relax your ligaments, um, helps reduce the inflammation, helps you rest, helps you sleep, helps you have an appetite. A lot of athletes have performance anxiety, so a lot of athletes will consume before they play because before they play they're nervous. Their stomach is upset. Some guys can't eat. Some guys can't sleep the night before the game because they're so amped up. They're so ready for what's about to go on, right? I'm preparing. I've been prepared, and now I'm laying in the bed and I can't fucking go to sleep because I'm thinking about the game. That's a very real thing that happens to a lot of athletes. So guess what? If I smoke, consume an edible or something, I'm gonna be able to go to sleep. Then I'm gonna get some rest. I'm gonna get some good sleep. I'm gonna get that good REM sleep. Wake up. A lot of guys gonna consume right before they got to get on the bus or go to breakfast, and then you go to the game, right? And then you have your game. Then you have your post game. And so as an athlete, that's something that I was around. You know what I mean? I had teammates who would go to the hotel night before the game, and guys are smoking in the bathroom. Some guys would leave the hotel if we was on campus because we stay off campus. Even though we had a game on campus, they would take us off campus. Some guys would leave, but some guys would smoke in their room. Uh, night before the game, get a good sleep, ball the fuck out, come to practice high. You know what I mean? And for me, like I never really did that. You know what I mean? I was the one. I never really came into the facility where everybody was like, "That nigga's just smoked a whole pound." You know what I mean? In the car, I was very much more mindful, very much more demure. You know what I mean? But you had guys that's, what I mean, would do that. So like even me personally, like my cannabis consumption in college wasn't even like that. Like in terms of playing, I would use it on the weekends. I would use it at post practice. Like during the season, I didn't really use it, especially once I got drug tested. I started getting drug tested. I was like, nah, I can't shake it, bro. Like I got drug tested by the school one day after I had just smoked a bunch of weed, bro, and I was so nervous. I was like, no, they're gonna find out that I'm smoking weed. And again, like nobody knows, like nobody tells you anything, and it's like you get a call from the trainer, and when you get a random ass call from the trainer, that's not good. Like, why are you calling me? I'm not hurt. Oh, Gerald, we need you to come in for a drug test by the end of the day. Okay, I will be there. and you better show up, because if you don't show up, you gotta go. First of all, you gotta go to the facility. You know what I mean? So there's no ducking the drug test. You gotta go. You got practice. And you got to go in the training room, because you got to get tape for practice. You got to get ice. You got to get treatment, right? So you're going to see the trainer at some point. So that was I don't know. I mean, at that point in time, I was like 190, 198. I was probably like 4% body fat. We had smoked so much weed the night before, and I worked out, went to practice, hot tub. I drank a whole detox drink like this big, drank a bunch of orange juice. I think I practiced, and then I went and pissed. And I made sure I pissed a couple times, so it wasn't like, and then like you just wait. Like they don't tell you. Like it's just like, so a couple days go by, and then of course I told my teammates like, yo, they drug testing. Yeah, when you stop that smoking. So then, of course, everybody like, yo, they tell you, like, I'm like, I don't know. They feel like, I don't know. You going to practice, you like, because you don't know if they're going to tell the coach, and then the coach going to come and be like, you suspended or whatever. So you just wait. Like, you don't never know when it's going to come. So, like, a few days go by, nothing happened. A week go by, nothing happened. And, like, you're seeing, you're talking to these people every day. So you like, 2 weeks go by, nothing happened. So then by the third week, I was like, I think I'm in the clear. I felt like I was in the clear. And so that was what, my freshman year. So that was back in like 2008, 2009. And again, I'm in Athens, Ohio. So we have access to some of the best weed. Our backup quarterback was one of the biggest drug dealers on campus. So like I had so much weed. And that's really where I fell in love with weed. But like I couldn't really like I couldn't just be like out and proud, like, yo, this, like, you see this shit, like, you can't do that shit. You know what I mean? I can do it now, but back then I couldn't do that shit. um I couldn't just be having my weed just, I didn't smell much of it actually. Mm, fucking terpenes. Sometimes you just gotta smell the weed though. It's my first home, bro. My first little babies. It's been curing, getting it nice and cured up. But all right, I think that's enough for y'all tonight. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms, Instagram, at Ohio_cannabis_report. If you want to support, we do accept donations. You can Cash App, $G13 Ventures. I'm about to start a Kickstarter here soon, because I want to. My goal is to get a studio. I want to get a studio where we can actually do classes. We can do live events. I have some spaces right now that we can use, but I really want to get like my own like space where we could do big time shit. You know what I mean? I got a few friends that do productions and stuff, but I want to do a full on cannabis podcast studio and media network. So that's the goal. We're gonna do a lot more events 2026. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Follow my nonprofit at Green Environmental Outreach or at GEO Nonprofit on social media. Some of our events will be done through there, just because the nonprofit space allows us to do a lot of things that the for-profit space doesn't, especially when it comes to community work, grassroots organizing, and stuff like that. So um, I'm looking for volunteers. I'm looking for people who want to host or who want to be guests on the show or who want to be interviewed. We're also looking for sponsors of the show. So if you want to have your brand, your services, your business sponsored on the Ohio Cannabis Report channel, please contact us via our email, which is at the bottom, which is right here, ohiocannabisreport@gmail.com. And we can talk some business. We're growing. We got about 162 subs on here. Again, I have multiple channels too. So this has been my main channel that we've been doing a lot of lives on and a lot of more informational content on. But definitely stay tuned and keep rocking with us. So we appreciate you guys. Hope you guys have a blessed week. I don't know when I'll be on, maybe tomorrow if Donald Trump does this executive order to reschedule cannabis. We might do a breaking news segment. So we'll see. But that's why you got to hit the notification bell. If you hit the notification bell, it'll let you know whenever I'm on the live stream. And sometimes I just do it, randomly, man, whenever I got some time where I can, fit in some content. So that's why it's always so random. I mean, it's 12:43, you know what I mean? And I'm a night owl. So trying to do the content for y'all, man. So this is for my Ohio people. Y'all stay safe out there, stay warm, be a blessing to somebody, share some weed with somebody. Let's be better, man. I know it's a lot going on out here in the world. It's the holidays, and whether you believe in the holidays or not, we can all do a little bit better. So spread some love, spread the blessings, and be of good cheer. Love you guys. Peace.